Hey everyone, my name is Nadia. I'm a pharmacist living and working in London. For the past 5 years, I feel like I've been in the thick of it in hospital, surrounded by some real stories by patients, colleagues, and I feel like I learned a lot, which I'd like to share with you. But also, I'm still figuring a lot of things out, like many other people here. And why did I decide to film this podcast? Well, to be honest, I always felt like aside from being a healthcare professional and in healthcare industry, I'm also someone who really likes to travel, hit up events, take pictures, videos, and share bits of my life on social media, and also like chat with people, socialize, and have this like meaningful conversations. I then decided let's combine my profession, being a pharmacist, and things that I like with things that I like to do in my free time. I just wanted to film myself, like find a safe space, like a little laboratory at home where I sit down, film myself, and I talk about things that really matter to me. And yeah, it's going to be a bit of science with a lot of heart here. But yeah, I'd love to see you there. See ya.
I've had requests to look at a patient's stool because they wanted to see what was inside of it, and I was just like, that's not me.
When I get any strange requests from a patient, I just kind of make it clear, like, I'm a specialist in medicine. You can ask me any medication question, even if I don't know the answer. I know where to look into it. But I feel like, don't ask me to check someone's tools because I wouldn't know, right? I wouldn't know.
Yeah, there's some sweet corn in that one.
My relationship with bleep is very bad.
No,
I mean, it gives you anxieties because it bleeps all the time. And sometimes it bleeps about things that you don't need to be bleeped about. I think what I'm always laughing is that when my girlfriends are having kids and they're like, oh, it's sleeping, it's on and off, and I'm not sleeping all the time because, the kid is waking up at night. I'm like, it's no problem because I've learned this,
Yeah.
I can fall asleep quickly, I wake up quickly, I'm fully alert, and I go back to sleep because it's almost like I had that training.
I think the bleep is like a baby
It's like
sometimes. And I also noticed that you've been recognized as a top 50 in digital health honoree as per Rock Health. So congratulations.
Thank you.
How does that feel?
It's great. I love what Rock Health does as a company, but I don't care much about awards. But it's nice, and I'm like very grateful.
But I just feel like it's so unfair how women, we have to go through so much. And then men not as much.
About men getting vasectomies at like 16. Nobody.
Yeah, we need to make vasectomies more common.
We moved from the clubbing to the Mayfair clubs to
Meeting someone in the
meeting
gym.
people at clubs
In the gym
clubs.
How
sorry.
do you think, is that like better? Because, if you meet someone in club, they might be like tipsy, whatever. It's dark, you don't really see, you can't really have a
Maybe
conversation.
someone's high on protein shakes.
So by moving the monitoring and supervisions that used to happen in the hospitals to the patient's home, we are trying to make the care more proactive and predictive. And this is kind of the movement that if you go back in the history with computers, there was a time everybody would go to a center to access computers, right? 60 years ago. But now everybody has a computer in their pocket. So think of something like that. We are moving the compute that used to happen in the hospital as much as possible to the patient home.
So imagine your gut microbiome is a beautiful garden.
Okay.
You have flowers, bushes, trees, but you also have weeds, right? And you know how quickly one weed can grow out of control and almost kill the whole bed of flowers. And then you ask why, right? Because it takes all the sunshine, all of the nutrients from the soil, all of the water, right? But it can also deposit toxins in the soil. And these are the toxins that you can absorb. You probably know about the gut-brain connection, right?
Yes.
So this is how they communicate via those chemicals, specific metabolites, hormones that are produced by the bacteria. So by looking at what they produce, we can tell whether they are beneficial for us or not so beneficial for us. While gut bacteria can be beneficial when it's growing at normal numbers and produce something that is considered beneficial for us.
Yeah.
And then if it starts growing out of control, and becomes a pathogen. Right? Because it can giving you an imbalance in the ecosystem.
Now, weight loss actually in Ozempic, the whole hype, it actually started on social media, and it just shows you how much social media is part of our life and it's affecting everything, even the big pharma. Do you know people using Ozempic for weight loss? Let me know in comments. Have you seen this, what we call the Ozempic phase? Yes, that's right. The Ozempic phase is this phenomena that people who use Ozempic and lose weight very quickly start to have a phase, which is the Ozempic phase, which is like the aging phase. Essentially, they just seem to look older. Their face looks older. And this is not really a side effect of Ozempic or anything, but it's just what happens when you lose weight very quickly, which is what happens with Ozempic. You get looser skin, hollow cheeks, and more visible wrinkles, which is what make you look older, kinda. And like I said, it's not caused by the drug directly, but it's just losing the fat quickly triggers this kind of aging of your face. What do you think of the Ozempic phase? Now, we have to remember that Ozempic actually comes with a side effects. There's nausea, there's vomiting, there's just people not wanting to eat, loss of appetite, and just makes people sick. It is very, very important, especially for off-label use for weight loss, that you consult with a medical professional and that the whole, treatment is supervised by a healthcare professional. Let's talk about PSA screening. So the screening for prostate cancer is PSA, which is prostate-specific antigen. And for many years, it's been quite controversial because of potential of false positive results. So I wanted to ask you, as of 2025, what's your opinion on routine PSA screening?
Yeah.
And what are some myths around PSA screening that we should know
So
about?
just to clarify, at the moment, there's no national screening program in the UK for prostate cancer screening. There is a large trial called Transform.
Yeah.
That's a £40 million trial that's starting, looking at this very question about whether we should be screening for prostate cancer. I trained in the United States. I did my fellowships at Cornell and also at the Karolinska in Sweden. And both the United States and Sweden have national prostate cancer screening programs, but the UK does not, because it hasn't been deemed to be cost effective and for the reasons that you discussed, things like false positives, etc. But my own view is that men that are at risk of prostate cancer should be screened. And so that would be the personal view as a prostate cancer specialist, but not a governmental policy view. But men that are at risk would be men who've got a positive family history. So men who've had a father or a brother with prostate cancer, they have a double the risk of developing prostate cancer during their lifetimes. Black men have a double risk of developing prostate cancer during their lifetimes. And as you get older, you have an increased risk of developing prostate cancer. So my advice would be, if you're a black man over the age of 50, you should consider screening. If you're a black man who's got a family history, even from the age of 45 or even 40, you should consider screening. Whereas for white men, perhaps it's less important unless they've got a family history with a father or brother.
And I think there's new evidence coming out about, actually it was today a discussion with one of my colleagues about menopause, HRT and GLP-1s. So there's some evidence that actually being on Manjaro or GLP-1s delay the gastric emptying, which we know, so delays the digestion. But that means that some medications can be less absorbed or they can be less effective. And one of the parts of HRT is micronized progesterone, which is the bioidentical progesterone. And actually, we need to now switch it if someone is on HRT.
Oh, wow.
That's the evidence that actually it's not enough because of the absorption is lower.
So there's probably like interaction between
interactions,
them.
Yeah. So I think there's new interactions that we're learning about. So kind of we need to watch the space. And
I've had a really non-traditional background for breaking into venture. And on a cumulative basis, I've actually spent more of my time not pursuing this career path than pursuing it, which is crazy to think about. But I've spent most of my life working towards Olympic aspirations as a competitive figure skater. And it actually wasn't until I enrolled in my undergraduate degree at the University of Michigan's Business School, where I was a full-time student for the first time since when I was 11. And so when I decided to sort of let go of those Olympic aspirations, which was definitely the most difficult career decision I've ever made, I was really, really focused on pursuing a career that was going to have some sort of impact that was bigger than myself. That seemed like the only way to make kind of letting go of those Olympic aspirations worth it.
I almost find it very therapeutic in the process of making coffee.
I love that.
I have my espresso machine. I go and I like research the beans that I wanna. I'm very mindful, and I always put a purpose on whatever I do. So if I'm going to make a coffee, I want to try and make it the best coffee. And if I'm going to do my work, I'm going to try and make the best work. And I try to do everything with a purpose behind it. So I actually really enjoy spending that 10 minutes in the morning making the coffee. It's probably, I shouldn't because I'm always late to do this.
If I had a daughter, I would probably recommend her to freeze her eggs in her late 20s, especially if it's like easy and affordable to do if over a long weekend with something like fertile cycle. And I would be like, look, like, your plan A is that you never use them. And that you find the perfect man, before you're 35, and you can have, 2 kids and be very happy, and, everything comes out plan A. And that was just like a weekend. But, if you end up needing them, could be from like a cancer treatment, an accident, or just life, right? Or just wanting to do something later where maybe your partner is able to do so, but you're not. I think it just gives more options. But
I personally haven't made a medicinal error, but sometimes people think of errors as it has to be something catastrophic, something that was, sometimes the smallest things, and sometimes it's a shame, sometimes the smallest things cause the biggest errors.
That's
And
true.
we've had a case where something simple as just the patient accidentally taking the wrong medication. We have all the beds have their own medication locker.
Yeah.
And these medication lockers need to be emptied for each patient that leaves, right? So
Yeah,
the patient comes in,
absolutely.
they leave, the nurses and the pharmacy team make sure it's empty, and the next patient comes in. And there's one patient, it wasn't completely emptied, so the next patient came in, and then when that patient left, he went home with everything, his medications and some medications from the previous patient. And the previous patient was on warfarin. Now, warfarin is a blood thinner. Actually, if you've got very elderly audience members, warfarin, they might remember warfarin being a rat poison. It's a blood thinning drug. And the problem is this patient didn't need a blood thinner, went home with the warfarin, took the warfarin because he was none the wiser, thought it was newly started for him, didn't know what it was for, and he died.
The copper IUD is one of the only forms of non-hormonal birth control, meaning that it does not release any hormones into your system. So the way it works is that because copper ion is toxic to the sperm, that causes the sperm to not be even able to fertilize the egg. So I'd read all these horror stories online. I asked ChatGPT, is this going to hurt? Everyone said, yes, it's going to hurt. And the nurse had another nurse along with her that I held her hand while doing this procedure. It hurt a lot. I'm not going to sugarcoat it.
Was it a very quick procedure, or how long did it last?
It felt really long, but it was, I think, about 5 minutes.
Okay.
But basically, you get a very strong period cramp when they're inserting it. It feels very uncomfortable. I would say it's more uncomfortable than painful.
Because my eczema was so bad that it covered my face. Imagine working for a cosmetic company every day, go into the office, and I couldn't even put my makeup on because it was like I didn't know what was irritating my skin. I was thinking maybe it's cosmetics, maybe it's makeup. So we've done lots of different testing with my dermatologist. Obviously, they put me on steroid creams, which obviously, things the skin makes it kind of easier or faster to age, which is a very bad side effect from all of this medication, right? So I then went to do hypnotherapy for a year, acupuncture for a year. Then I also tried homeopathy for a year. That was through NHS as well. That was 2-year treatment, right? Nothing helped. Nothing put me into remission. I mean, it was getting a little bit better, a little worse. I didn't want to use any steroid creams non-stop, right? I would only use them when it was completely impossible to tolerate.
Yeah, it's less resort.
Yeah, it was really, really bad because the eczema I was wet type. So, when it cracks, leaks, infects, and bleeds. So that was so bad, right? Anyway, so to cut the long story short, I found this book on Amazon, which was called How to Cure Your Eczema. Imagine my surprise. And it was just a very simple dietary advice that removed sugar, gluten, dairy, tea, and coffee. That's all I remember. And because that was my diet, it consisted mostly of those foods, right?
My God. Wow.
So this is why when I changed my diet, I had to use other foods, right, to put there instead. So it was protein, and it was essential fats, and it was fiber from vegetables, right? So I really tried, and guess what happened? My eczema went into remission for the first time in years, and I could not believe it. It was like a miracle. So I ran to my dermatologist, right? At the time I was in Whitechapel, it was a big hospital there. So, and it was one of the best dermatologists in London, right? And I remember her reception room. There were people like bleeding and like covered in skin issues like psoriasis and eczema. They were really, really bad cases. And I thought, I need to tell her. I ran to her office and was like, I know the answer. It's diet. She looked at me and she said, no, diet has nothing to do with your skin, unfortunately. So it will come back. Like the winter scar in your eczema will come back.
Oh, that's so demoralizing.
I was so upset. So yes, and she was right. So 9 months later, even though I was still doing the same diet, and yes, it was winter, my eczema did come back.
I was just talking with my friend who traveled to Mexico and did a fertile cycle and did a standard IVF cycle. And, she was like, honestly, like, both were rough, but fertile was much, 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 much better. So I think that summarizes it, right? I also participated in one of our trials in New York where I donated my eggs for research.
How was that experience?
Well, it was great to, test your own medicine. And I think like a lot of physicians should experience, where possible, on the patient side, the elective procedures, because I think like as doctors, we're kind of primed to underestimate non-life-threatening complications.
Now, the thing that struck me the most, and which is why I'm recording this episode, is that the main character of White Lotus season 3 is no one but lorazepam. So, couple of things. So, we all know Victoria Ratliff, aka Parker Posey, is being famous for taking so much lorazepam, right? Benzodiazepines are actually control drugs. He said that if men were to live until age of 120, they would all develop at least microscopically.
Yeah, so the thing about prostate cancer is it's a very heterogeneous disease. So it's a very variable disease. So you have the majority of men that have prostate cancer will die with their cancer rather than from their cancer.
Okay.
So that's the sort of very old man who ends up with microscopic, as you call it, or very insignificant prostate cancer. But equally, it is still the commonest cause of death from cancer after lung cancer in Western men. So it is still also the second commonest cause of cancer death in Western men. So there are also very aggressive prostate cancers as well. So prostate cancer, the way I explain it to people is it can go from being like a household pussycat to being a Bengal tiger. And actually, it's very important to figure out whether you're a household pussycat or a Bengal tiger, or whether you're something in between.
And when you look at, let's say, in the US, 4 trillion almost healthcare, 2 trillion of that is people's salary.
That's true, yeah.
And on top of that, there is a shortage. On top of that, everybody knows that doctors and nurses don't have enough time to actually put their attentions on what matters. So this is where I think the combination of the pipes we have created to have all this data, and then being able to push back the insight as the foundations, and these models on top of it, suddenly you can look after, let's say, all the CKD or asthma patients in a country with a room of, 50 doctors or 50 nurses.
Yeah.
And keep every patient the most optimized version of themselves. Make sure that everyone gets the best supervisions. As you know, another big problem is you go from Boston to, I don't know, Alabama for the same patients on the same almost drug, the outcomes are very different.
Absolutely, yeah.
And this is, one modern country like the US. Now think of, you go from Alabama to now, I don't know, India. So the care is very inconsistent. And I think combination of digital health plus the large language models, it makes care super consistent, super scalable. And the good example I always like to share is, no matter you're the richest kid in San Francisco or the poorest kid in India, as long as you have a mobile phone with some basic internet connectivity, your Google map takes you from A to B exactly the same way.
Same, yeah.
So this should happen for
With
care.
healthcare as well. Yeah, that's actually...
Ready? 1, 2, 3. Mira is a key member of Hindenburg Investment Team, a family office of Olivia Walton.
Sorry, cut. It's Ingeborg.
Ingeborg.
Yeah, I know, it's a tough one.
My guest today is Dillian Bat. Dillian, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much, Nadia.
Dillian is an investor.
Sorry, it's Dylan.
Dylan, oh my God. Dina, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you. It's always a pleasure to visit my little sister.
Cut. You're covering with the microphone.
Okay.
They are addressing the big healthcare crisis involving obesity, cancer, and other immuno. Okay. 1, 2, 3. What if a single drug can treat over 40 different types of cancer? I start again. 1, 2, 3.